Morning, seventh graders. It's Thursday, October 22nd, and we are headed back into Chapter 2 today. You just finished a test on Tuesday, which was the first half of Chapter 2 on a few lessons, specifically percent of change and percent proportion, and you learned how to use a proportion setup to solve for a missing piece in that proportion. So we were either solving for a part, a whole, or a percent. Or in the other case, we're trying to find a percentage of change. Was something increasing in cost or amount, or was something decreasing in cost or amount? So that proportion, those proportion setups, we are now going to use in the second half of this chapter. The second half of this chapter is the part of the chapter that I enjoy the most as far as getting to teach to you how situations involving sales tax and tips and sale price and total cost and markups, how that all works, and situations where you will come across that outside of the school. And so in real world situations where it becomes most applicable to you. So we're going to start today. We're going to start lesson 6, and specifically in lesson 6 today, we're going to look at sales tax and tip. We'll start today with those two items to begin with. So if you could please make sure that you have your math book open to page 152 and you have a calculator ready to go. Pause the video, please, and make sure you have that in front of you, and I'll meet you back here and we'll start talking about sales tax and tip. All right, so you should be on page 152 right now, and let's take a look at the top of the page to a definition on sales tax and what that means. So at the very top, it says sales tax is an additional amount of money charged on items that people buy. And then the total cost of an item is the regular price plus the sales tax that we calculate. So let's take a minute and I want you to view sales tax throughout the U.S. So I'm going to exit out of my video here and just show you in general that sales tax is different in every state. If you obviously look at Michigan here, we have a 6% sales tax, and we're ranked number 38 amongst all the states. Now, what that means is, if I look down a little bit further here, Tennessee is ranked number 1 with the highest sales tax rate there. So it's 9.55% in Tennessee that those citizens that live in that state have to pay. And so we're ranked 38th out of all 50. So we're, just below, I guess you should say, halfway. So if you look at some of these as well, some of these states are shaded gray. And so like Oregon, Montana, New Hampshire, which is over here on the east, Delaware as well, which again is on the East Coast here, and then Alaska down at the very bottom. All of those shaded in gray actually have no sales tax. So that does happen. There are states that don't charge sales tax. They rely on other forms of tax to help various things in their state. And so it's just a very interesting thing to see the different sales tax rates amongst the United States. So this, I'm just kind of giving you a quick overview. Really, as we do some problems throughout the book and examples, you'll see different sales tax rates. We'll refer a lot to Michigan sales tax rate at 6%, but that's not to say with some of the examples we do in the book or outside the book that we won't see some of these examples as well. So the other piece too, so let me come back to the book, that we're going to look at today is tips. So I'm going to scroll to the bottom of page 152, and tips are a gratuity. Tip and gratuity mean the same thing. It's a small amount of money in return for a service. And so typically your total price is the regular price of the service plus the tip that you leave. So here's also some examples, not that right here, of where you would tip in situations. So, and again, these are just examples. So it could be, there's possibilities where you could tip in different situations, but this is in general tipping etiquette. So hotel staff, such as room service or a hotel porter that that's bringing your bags, a doorman that possibly holds a door for you. These again are just suggestions. Restaurants, wait staff at a restaurant, typically not necessary when you do takeout, but some people still do. Or pizza delivery, or anybody that delivers food to you, your home, could absolutely get tipped. And these also just give you kind of an idea of how much you should tip, and we'll talk about that in the lesson as we do examples of tips. Traveling on a cruise, if you're at the airport, again, checking in bags. A taxi, you could tip. Limousine drivers. Weddings, you do tip certain areas, like a wait staff or a bartender at a wedding, like a coat room if somebody's taking your coat as you arrive, possibly the DJ. Haircuts, right? Salon and spa. So your barber, your hairstylist, it could be somebody that does your nails, and also pet groomers. And then there's like I said, there's other examples. This is not the end all, right? This is just typically where you would see tipping occur. And really a lot of our examples that we will use for tipping will be focused around restaurants for the most part. We might come across a few others, but we'll really focus on bills, restaurant bills, and how much you should tip on your restaurant bills. Okay, so we're going to do some tax and tip examples, So let's go. I'm actually going to have you go a couple pages, and we're going to look at guided practice. So guided practice is on page 154. And since we already know how to set the problems up with a proportion, there's no really extra piece I have to show you here. I'm going to walk through some examples using the proportions we did at the first half of the chapter, and then just be able to explain we're talking about money in most of these situations. And so in that case, we have to be careful with our dollar signs, our rounding to the nearest cent, and so on. And so we'll cover that in some of the examples. So we're going to start with number one. Now, number one says right above the directions, it says find the total cost to the nearest cent. I'm going to hold off on total cost. I'm going to just focus on making sure that you understand how to find the tax amount first and then the tip amount. And then we can talk about total cost after that. Okay, so the first example, number one, it's $2.95 for a notebook, and the state that we're buying it in has a 5% sales tax rate. So like I said, we're going to start with setting that proportion up. And you know that when we set the proportions up, we always take care of the percent over 100, right? So if we're given the percent, which in this case is 5%, we're going to put 5% over 100%. And then in this first fraction, we've talked about the part and we've talked about the whole. Now, the notebook is $2.95. That's the regular price. Okay, so $2.95 is actually the whole that goes in the denominator. We need to find the part. We need to find the tax amount on that $2.95 notebook. So the X part goes up top here. So like we've been doing, we calculate, right? Now with money, you know you're going to have decimals. And so the best way to approach these problems is to go and do your cross multiplying. So 100 times X, 100X equals $2.95 times 5. Okay, so you should have a calculator in front of you. You should be multiplying this out with me right now. 2.95 times 5. And what you should see is 14.75. 14.75. Well, you know at this point, right, you're going to divide by 100. You're going to solve for X here. Divide by 100. Now, you by all means can use your calculator, but also I've been trying to get you to understand that if you divide by 100, it moves the decimal place 2 places to the left. And so what you're going to see is 0.1475. Now, we can't leave it like this because I said it's money. And we do have to round to the nearest cent. So that means I'm either looking at this and going, well, it's going to be 14 cents or 15 cents. And I know because I'm going to look in the thousandths place. I'm going to look at that 7 right there. And that 7 is going to tell me what I need to do in the hundredths there to that 4. Well, I need to round it up. And so my final answer here is that the tax on the notebook, the 5% tax on the notebook, is 15 cents. Again, that's just the tax, the 5% that state is charging on sales tax for a $2.95 notebook is 15 cents. Okay, let's try. Let me go here. Yep, let's go to independent practice. So I'm going to stick to keeping the tax problems together, and then we'll go back and do tip. So independent practice on the next page, so page 155. Let's take a look at number 3. So we have a $1,500 computer that has 7% tax. So we know that we're going to do 7% out of 100%. And we also know that we are going to find the tax amount, the part out of the whole, which is a $15 regular price computer. All right, we're going to cross multiply. 100 times X. 1,500 times 7, right? So you should be using your calculator and multiplying that out. And you should get 10,500. Now, once again, you're dividing by 100 so you can solve for X. It's going to move the decimal place 2 places to the left. You're going to get 105. There's no rounding here because there's no cents. There's no decimal in your final answer. So your final answer, your tax amount on that computer is $105. So believe it or not, on a $1,500 computer that is charging 7% tax in that state, your tax amount is $105. Okay, let's try another one. Let's try number 4. So now we're looking at $46 shoes that is going to have a 2.9% tax rate. So let's get that proportion set up. And right away, let's put that percent over 100. 2.9% out of 100%. Every time you set these up, the regular price, the whole price is going to go in that denominator. There's your $46 shoes. And you're finding the part. You're trying to find the part, the small piece, the tax on those shoes. Okay, let's do it again. Let's cross multiply. 100 times X. $46 times 2.9. So go ahead and calculate that. And when you do, you should get 133.4. And go ahead and solve it. Divide by 100. X equals, right? And so dividing by 100, move that decimal 2 places to the left. It's $1.33. Now, I should say 1.334 to start with, right? So, but you can't say it's $1.334. Doesn't make sense. So we know that we're going to have to look at rounding to the nearest hundredth. I look in the thousands there. That 4 tells me what to do to that 3. It's $1.33. The 4 isn't going to round anything. It stays as it is. So those $46 shoes with 2.9% sales tax is $1.33. So I'm going to have you try. Let's go to extra practice. So the extra practice is going to be on page 157. So right now, I want you to try tax. Go ahead and do number 18 for me. And then pause the video, try it, check back. We'll go over it. Okay, let's take a look. So hopefully you set your proportion up with the $7.50 meal in the denominator, and then that 6.5 tax rate over 100. And so when you solve, you should get x equals this decimal, 0.4875. Now again, you can't say it's 4,875 cents. You have to make sure you look in that thousandths spot there and see if it needs to round. And so that 7 is going to take that 8 and round it up a penny. So it's going to become 49 cents in tax. Okay, so now I said we also are going to look at some tip examples. So I'm going to have you go back again. I know I have you jumping all over the place, but I'm trying to be very specific and narrow things down little by little to start with. Okay, we're going to go back to guided practice. So that means we're going to go back to page 154. And now we're going to look at a tip example, okay? So let's say you're eating lunch and your lunch costs $28 and you're going to leave the wait staff a 15% tip. Well, how much is that? What does that mean? All right, so I'm going to show you a few different ways to do this in the next couple days, but right now I'm going to show you just the proportion setup of it and also hopefully teach you a different way, like I said, on how to calculate tip. So now the setup is the same, okay? You're trying to find the part, the tip, out of the $28 lunch, which is the whole. You know you're going to leave a 15% tip out of 100%. Again, the setup is the same as what we just did with sales tax. Okay, so let's solve it. 100 times X and 28 times 15. So make sure, calculate that. 28 times 15. 420. Keep solving, right? Divide by 100. X equals. That decimal is going to move 2 places to the left when you divide by 100. Anytime you divide by 100, 2 places to the left, you get 4.20. This works out perfect. There's your dollar and cent amount exactly. So the tip amount that you're going to leave is $4.20 when you spent $28 at lunch. That's how much you're going to leave for the waitstaff. Let's try another one. So again, I'm going to go to another page. We're going to look at independent practice. So 155. Okay, so number 1, you're going to have a $58 bill at a restaurant, and you're going to leave a 20% tip this time. So let's say your wait staff was excellent. They did a fantastic job waiting on you and getting your food on time and so on. You want to leave an extra tip. You want to leave 20% this time. So again, we're going to learn it this way first. We're going to learn that proportion setup. We're going to find the tip amount, the numerator, out of the $58 bill. And then we are going to leave that 20% tip out of 100%. Okay. So the more we use these proportions, the more I hope you're getting comfortable, right? We'd spent all of the first part of Chapter 2 working on these proportions and getting them set up, and you're still using them now in the second half to apply and find tips, tax, and so on. 58 times 20. 1,160. Divide by 100. X equals, right? Dividing by 100, move the decimal 2 places to the left. 11.60. And again, this is coming out exactly in dollars and cents the way you need it to. There's no rounding needed. So that means on this $58 bill that you are leaving 20% tip on, you're going to leave $11.60 for that waitstaff. You go ahead and try number 2. You do this next one here. Now remember I said at the very beginning, gratuity means the same thing as tax. So I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Not tax. Let me erase that. That's your tip. So gratuity and tip mean the exact same thing. Okay, so find that tip amount, find that 18% gratuity on this $43 dinner. Try it, pause the video, I'll meet you back. Okay, so hopefully you found for number 2 that your $43 dinner, leaving an 18% tip, you're going to leave $7.74. Now, 18%, that's kind of a different amount. You don't see that very often. Typically in restaurants, sit-down restaurants, you're leaving anywhere from 15% to 20%. Not that you couldn't give more, but that's typical, 15 or 20. So 18% is kind of unique. But again, we'll talk more about tips here in the next few days as well. But in this case, right, so far with tax and tips, with that same proportion setup and how we're solving and finding that tax amount and that tip amount, dollars and cents, you're getting comfortable with working these out. Now, again, like I said, the only difference is we're talking about money. And so we just have to be more careful with those dollar amounts. So I want to take the last last few minutes, of this lesson and just talk about rounding. I'm going to have you practice a couple rounding dollar amounts to make sure that you're okay with it and you're understanding it. So again, you're going to need lined paper. And on your lined paper, I'm going to switch the screen here in just a second and show you the ones that we're going to practice. And on your lined paper, you're going to try these. You're going to round them and see if we get the same answers and match. So pause, get your paper ready. When you come back, I'll have the screen switched and we'll look at a few examples. Okay, so now, like I said, we're going to practice a little rounding. So we need to just make sure we're comfortable with rounding dollar and cent amounts. So I gave you some decimals here that need to be rounded to that correct dollar and cent. So meaning, number 1, we can't say something is $4.124. Number 2, we can't say it's $23.09 of a cent. It just doesn't make sense, right? So we need to make sure that you can round correctly to the nearest hundredth. You should be, in each example, making sure that you look in that thousandths spot so it tells you what to do the hundredths. So you try these 6. Again, you're going to pause the video, try rounding these on your own, check back, and make sure you rounded correctly. Okay, let's see. So this is what you should have gotten. Number 1, it should be $4.12. Number 2, it should be $23.01, 1 cent. Number 3 should be $10.99. Number 4, that's going to round right up to $76 here. That 9 is going to round that 9 up to the next whole dollar amount. Number 5, you should have 64 cents. And number 6, that rounds to a penny. So this was just, again, a small introduction of tax and tips. Not tomorrow, Friday is a half a day, and we don't have content on Friday. So on Monday, when I see you again on video, on Monday, we're going to look at tax, tips, and total cost. So finding that total cost. And then we're also going to bring in what's called markups. And so we'll wrap up lesson 6, hopefully on Monday. So enjoy your Friday, enjoy your half a day. What you should, if you still have time right now, I should say, before you enjoy your Friday, is when you are done with this lesson, if there's time in class still, you should definitely head to Alex. We are going to start, next week with 30 minutes per week on Alex. So we decided not to do it this week just due to not being in school on Wednesday and no content on Wednesday, and then Friday being a half a day and also no content. So we're going to wait till next week, and we'll talk about that on Monday as well, making sure that you're getting your 30 minutes of Alex time starting next week. So have also a good weekend, and I will meet you back here on Monday. See you then.